since 1619, when we were brought to this country enslaved as human beings, we've always been under a threat.
Hey, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'll ask everyone, if you haven't already, please put your phone on silence or vibrate because we are recording. Thank you so much. My name is Claudette Tolson, also known in the Facebook group as Ayodele, and I am the lead for the Historical Perspective Committee for Bass Reeves. And I want to thank everyone for being here today for our very first town hall on African Americans and responsible firearm ownership. And I want to introduce our panel today, who are all leaders in Bass Reeves. We have Colin Mapp, who's a former president of Bass Reeves, and also now the national director of chapter membership for NAGA.
Welcome.
We have Cassandra Light, who is the vice president of Bass Reeves. And Larry Brown, who is the president of Bass Reeves. Okay.
Y'all awake still?
Responsible firearm ownership is very important in the African American community. We wanted to do a town hall today to address issues important to us and to also deal with the stigma around African American firearm ownership. I believe that it's very important to know how to defend yourself. It's one of the main reasons I joined Bass Reeves back in 2016 when we were a meetup group. And we have grown so much since then. So I'm very, very proud to be a member of Bass Reeves. So now we will move to our questions for today. And so I'll ask the questions to the panelists and they can answer as they see fit. And then we'll open it up to the floor if you all would like to make any comments or you have any questions to follow up. All right. Okay. So our very first question is, what role did African Americans play in armed resistance and self-defense in the past?
Well, I'll take that one. All right. So I don't think I can recall a time in American history when African Americans were not concerned with self-defense. I think it's always been a situation for us where we have to defend ourselves, protect our property, protect our humanity. And so since 1619, when we were brought to this country enslaved as human beings, we've always been under a threat, right? Even with so-called emancipation and post-Civil War, guns were still in the community. Guns were kept away from our community in many instances so that, the racial hierarchy could be kept, as it was prior to the Civil War. So, I think guns have been instrumental ever since we've been in this country.
All right. Thank you, Colin. Okay, did you want to add anything?
I don't mean. I think he pretty much nailed it. We've seen through the NMOC and things how we've used these tools for all of those reasons. So I think Colin pretty much nailed it.
Okay, thank you all. All right, anyone, if you have any comments or questions, please let us know, and then we're going to direct you over here to Antonio, who'll have a mic for you. Yes, can you come on over so we can get your mic? Oh yeah. Oh, can we bring a mic to her so she can? Okay, just one second. Okay. All right. We'll come right back to you, ma'am. He's going to bring a mic over, but We'll come back to that. But we'll move on to our next question, just for time. The next question is, how has systemic racism and violence impacted African Americans' views on gun ownership and self-defense?
I guess I'll start on that one. So, I mean, for me, when I think about the systemic racism part is prohibiting or trying to prohibit, but I also think it's also shown the negative more than the positive. What I mean by that is you think about guns in our communities, a lot of times we see the bad that happens with them and people want to go away from it in our community versus what we do as a chapter, the good that we show, the being able to use it the right way and having self-defense and showing images of us doing the things positively with firearms. So I think we get sensationalized a lot of the times with that and shown, hey, look at Chicago, look what happened here, and then all these things versus how many times have we actually seen us shown on our media doing things in a positive light. Every now and then an international company comes over and shows us, but very rarely have I seen WSB or ABC locally come out and just say, hey, this is what this chapter is doing. So that to me is how I've seen it be a negative in our community versus showing us in a positive light.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll add to that. After, so in the Reconstruction era, post-Civil War, we had what's called the Black Codes. The Black Codes were laws that prohibited African Americans from having weaponry, not just firearms, but any weaponry to protect themselves or defend themselves. Also during that time, there were instances where we took trips to the Legacy Museum in Alabama, and you'll see, plaques up on the wall that says, this person was lynched because, they didn't cross the street when a white man was on the sidewalk, or they didn't call the police officer sir, so they were lynched. So I believe that in our community we've been traumatized. We've been traumatized to the point where if we feel like we need to defend ourselves, and it's met with violence, the mothers, the parents will say, hey, don't defend yourself. It's almost like we restrict ourselves or police ourselves from defending ourselves because of the violence that we believe it's going to come afterwards, right? So I think there's a level of trauma in our community that causes us to submerge really the need for firearms in our community to defend ourselves.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. And we did have a question from the audience.
I was just wondering is there a difference of Black people making guns? Because it seems like it would be the blacksmith that would make it, and that would be a labor-intensive kind of job. And we always had those jobs, and I wonder, did we make guns?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me to quote anything, but yeah, there are cases where I do remember reading not too long ago of a Black inventor who made something similar to the Gatling gun, but because he was a Black inventor, it got pushed down, and so they made it difficult for him to get a patent and all these things to the point where he died penniless. So yes, to answer your question, yes, we have invented, and in some, like most cases, we've been the innovators and didn't get our just due with that. So yes, we have been done that.
Thank you.
I think we have a question.
Yes,
over
another question, and we're coming over to you.
They can step to the mic too.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Luar. So the question about systemic racism as it pertains to gun ownership, especially after Reconstruction, I think that the stories that we know are not always accurate, right? And there's not a lot of history that tells us. We do know, like during the 1906 race massacre here in Atlanta, what stymied that or stopped it was the fact that neighboring towns were arming Black people to defend themselves. But you don't hear those stories. Most people don't know about the race massacre. So I would like to think that depending on the teller of the story that we were, all of the things that we were equipped with.
Absolutely.
Because, that those that would like to keep us suppressed definitely wouldn't want to know that. So I would like to think that we were armed and just didn't publicize it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. There are incidents where, we had groups that were proponents of armed self-defense who defended the community from racial violence, and those things weren't reported in the newspaper, right? The defeats were never reported of the other side, right? The Ku Klux Klan or the KKK-backed police officers in those communities, when they took a loss, it was never reported. It's like fake news, right? It's almost like what we see today with the dumbing down of the news. Same thing happened historically. And it's the same thing with the inventors, right? The innovators in our community. If you think about it, if you look at the inventions that were invented throughout this American history, many of the inventions or tools that we use right now that we feel comfortable with were invented by African Americans, right? But you would never know that because of, again, systemic racism bleeds over into our educational system as well.
And to that point as well, one of the things that we try to do, not only with this chapter, but with the national organization, is we do have the new member NMOC, right, where we have the Black tradition of arms, because we try to educate about those items that get glossed over in normal education, right? We talk about the things that are important in our community and in history to the African American community specifically, like the things that you pointed out. That in school they may have a one-liner about it, right? But it's not specifically talked about, or the significance of it is not told. Not only for us, but also other minorities as well. Yeah.
I was just curious as to what year we were legally able to have access to firearms. Was it during Reconstruction or after?
That's a great question. I think we had access to firearms for a number of different reasons, right? So when
did the laws change to the point where we can just go in and get a firearm legally? Do you know when that was?
No, I couldn't tell you what year that was, to tell you the truth. But if you look back on history, there's always been an attempt to use gun control against our community. So even when it was lawful for citizens, American citizens, to own firearms, at times it was unlawful for us to own firearms as a community, right? I'll give you a case in point. So Dred Scott decision, right? That was, birthright citizenship decision in the courts. And what was contested is that, if African Americans were given full birthright citizenships as U.S. citizens, then we would be allowed by the Second Amendment to bear arms, and that was looked upon as frowned upon, right? They did not want that. So yes, citizens were legally able to, but then there were laws on the books that prevented us specifically as a community from enjoying our right to bear arms.
Yes.
My name is Maurice Patton. My question, what is the current Georgia laws for obtaining a firearm? It's kind of confusing, I think. We had to go to our respective counties to start the process. I'm in DeKalb County. It's a two-step process. So where are we now with that?
Are you asking about getting a gun or getting your license?
Two different things.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm talking about concealed carry.
Okay. Yeah.
So to answer your question, and I know we got some members here, but Georgia is now constitutional carry, which just means if you can legally go get your permit right now today, you can legally, with constitutional carry, not have to go do all that part, right? The other part is, if you travel, well, let me stop here. Reciprocity does not cross state line for you, though.
State lines or county lines?
State lines. So there are states who counties kind of, Georgia's not one of those, not to my knowledge, and it hasn't been. So it's state line for you. So you get constitutional carry for the state of Georgia. If you want to leave the state of Georgia, that does not travel with you. You do need to, at that point, have your Georgia weapons carry license to get reciprocity. Florida, Alabama, the 36 or 40 states that we get a reciprocity with. So I would always say, get it. And then it also does two things. You get to travel, you get reciprocity when you travel, but also the purchasing process of it all. If you go purchase right now without it, if their system is jammed up, it might tell you got to come back tomorrow or whatever. With that permit, I go in, background is already done, all this, that, and the other, I'm in and out. So there's pros and cons. Yes, you got to go pay some money and do your fingerprints, but for me, that outweighs the wait process. I like to travel. I can take mine and travel with it. I get more with just going ahead and still doing the permit. Yeah. And I have talked to other individuals as well. If I'm stopped by the police, it might depend on if they're having a good day or a bad day still, but that also lets them know, hey, he's taking some extra steps. And so this gun that he has on him probably is okay. And I've had a police stop me and see the permit in my couple who just say, hey, just leave the gun where it's at. Let me just finish doing what I'm doing. Cool. So again, not 100%. Clearly they're human beings, but in personal and talks, it does kind of help them ease their whatever as well. So again, it's not 100%. Nothing is ever 100% in this thing, but it helps. So I would always tell people to go ahead and still get the permit. But you do have constitutional carry. So folks like my parents who don't tend to travel with it can at least now carry if they choose to start carrying on their body.
Yeah. And I think there's a misconception about constitutional carry. People think that, it's constitutional carry, now everyone can get a gun, and that's not true.
Not at all.
Right? So you have to, you can't have a felony, right? Misdemeanors with forcible violence. You have to be of age, and so there's a process to go through in order to purchase a firearm, but you don't need a license to purchase in Georgia. You also, with constitutional carry, do not need the weapons carry license to carry. But as Larry said, it makes sense to go ahead and get it. It's $85. You go to your probate court. You get your fingerprints done. You pay your fee, and they do the background check, and you get your weapons carry license. In some cases, that license can be a differentiator between you having a felony charge or you having a misdemeanor charge for certain violations of the law. So I think there was a teacher not too long ago, I forgot what county it was in, went to school with a firearm, left it in the bathroom, student found it, returned it, claimed it. You're going to get arrested, right? The gun shouldn't be in the school, first of all. But I don't believe he had a weapons carry license, so the charge is a felony charge. If he had the weapons carry license, it would have been a misdemeanor, right? So there's nuances to the law that will jam you up. Just because this constitutional carry, you say, ooh, I don't have to get a weapons carry license, don't fall for that, right? That is going to jam up a lot of people who don't have the knowledge of what the law is. Right, so you still need to fill out a 4473 to take possession of a firearm. So you still have to prove that the background check was done, and that's where that weapon carry license affords you, to reduce the time that you need to complete that process because you've already been background checked and they know that you're not a felon. Make sense? All right.
We have another question here.
The question was asked in regards to when were African Americans legally able to purchase firearms. The historical perspective tells us that was at the end of slavery, ironically during like Juneteenth, 1865. So it also pretty much the Civil Rights Act, 1866, to answer that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I want to recommend a documentary by the creative mind of Dr. Carol Anderson. It's called I Too. So if you can get your hands on that, it really gets into the issue of armed resistance and that we were resisting, and it talks about different towns in this country where African Americans fought back. So I want to mention that. Also, as far as the issue of the laws, one of our members of our Historical Perspective Committee, Patricia, noted that even, when we talk about the early foundations of this country, you did have Africans who came with some Europeans and were settling, and those people were armed. So even before you have these laws on the books, there are some Africans and people of African descent who did have firearms. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question for the panel. And now how many of you have seen these videos of ICE going after Latinos? Okay. All right, so most of you are aware of these videos. We've seen these videos, we've heard about these videos where Latinos are being detained by ICE. Some of us might wonder, are African Americans next? Some question whether these are really ICE agents or somebody else doing these things. Some would wonder, are these detainments legal? And so the question I have for the panel is, if you saw someone being taken by ICE or those who might be ICE, would you intervene? If so, at what point, if any, might you need to use your firearm? Would your reaction change if it were someone you didn't know?
That's deep. That's a deep question.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah, I'd actually. So there's multiple questions in that one.
Yes.
So I'll start with I have a little bit different perspective because my family is from Jamaica. So yes, I think that this is going to extend not just to Latinos, right? I don't think that this is just like one race thing, right? This is people not, it's not an isolated incident, right? I think right now it is them right now, right? But I have family members right now that are having issues, right? Just coming back into America, coming out of America, having issues. So I don't think it's isolated. I think it's going to be a continued issue. I think that if I were to see it, I would first make sure that was actually an ICE agent. I can't say for sure that, and I know there's numbers that you can call to verify if someone is an ICE agent, just like if someone was a police officer, things like that. I don't think I would use lethal force or anything like that if it was a family member. But I would definitely make sure that it was not a fraudulent thing happening, right? Depending on how forcibly or aggressively they were doing it, I would try and get some other law enforcement involved, right? Call and say, hey, this is happening. I'm not sure what's going on, just so that there was another, law enforcement agency involved. I'd be recording it. I'd be making sure other people are aware of what's happening, right? And then making sure to get, a lawyer involved on retainer so that situation is already rolling. So just right off the bat, that's the first things I'd be, involved with.
Thank you.
Yes,
yeah.
I feel like that's the best answer because, that is hard only because escalating force, I probably wouldn't go down that route, right? But if I know that this person has never even set foot in Jamaica, and I'm just thinking about a case now that I've just read where the guy was born in Germany, but his dad is Jamaican and he's being deported. So it's like, and I haven't verified the story, but if that's a situation that's real and I know that person, like how can I then therefore say, hey, I would try to intervene as much as I could from a legal perspective. But to your point, if I don't know the person, it's no different than me seeing people argue at a gas station. I don't know what's going on. I can't say that she's the aggressor to him, and just because he's bigger than her, that means I got to take her side. I have no clue what's going on. So I'm only going to speak from that side, because I think her answer with having family actually potentially dealing with that is the best answer for that. But if I don't know it, I report and document. That's as much as I can do for me, because escalation of force is only going to hurt me and or them, not winning that battle. Mostly because they're coming with power disparity at that point in time, most likely anyway. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a very personal choice. It's just like the choice to whether you're going to carry, conceal, or not. That's a personal choice. Some people feel comfortable doing that. Some people don't. I have thought about things like this ever since George Floyd incident. How I would react. I put myself in the situation of those who were filming it. I put myself in the situation of, just being a bystander, and I've come to the conclusion that in my community, let's say I'm going to Publix or whatever, in my community, I will defend my community. I've made that decision personally, and I'm not asking anyone else to do that. So if I had seen a George Floyd incident, I would have intervened, because that is a excessive use of force. If you're killing someone, if you're snuffing out their life, I don't feel good about myself if I allow that to happen, right? So I have to intervene in some way. First, verbally, I definitely will film. I definitely will call 911 to get some other law enforcement on the scene. Those things will definitely be done, but I will confront that situation, and then and face the consequences behind it, right? I've already settled that with myself. ICE agents, I don't believe any of those folks are ICE agents. I don't, and therefore I believe that you're a threat to me and to my community. And if you don't identify yourself or show any solid proof that you are an ICE agent, I will definitely intervene. You're not taking my family member anywhere without me physically intervening. It doesn't mean I'm going to use lethal force. That's not the choice in these situations. We'll try to de-escalate at all times. That's an approach you should always take. You should always ask for a supervisor. If they're legit, then they should bring a supervisor. Right? If they don't want to do those things, then they don't want to follow the law. And if they don't want to follow the law, then I feel that I'm under attack, and my community is under attack. So I need to defend my community, and that's just me. So I've already settled that within myself that's the approach that I'll take.
Thank you. Yes, and if you could come over, that'd be great. Thank you. So we have a response or a question from the audience.
It's a combination and follow-up question.
Okay.
And so I'm with you. And that is the decision that I made with literal daily prayers, that's not a situation that I'm forced into.
Absolutely.
But one point that I wanted to make is that without a warrant, it's not legal. It doesn't even matter if they're an ICE agent. You can't just wander around scooping people up off the street. Certainly not with your face covered, because that could be anybody. But the follow-up question that I had was, how can we anticipate and organize ourselves? Because as you said, this is not stopping with Hispanic people, and has already affected people outside of that community. So how can we anticipate and organize so that there is less of an individual risk in us intervening? Because I got to tell you, it infuriates me when I see people just standing around filming. I don't know what it, filming an illegal kidnapping with people whose faces are covered. I'm not sure how that protects the person being kidnapped. So I'd be very curious to hear how we're what we're going to do to prepare and protect ourselves and the people that we love.
Yeah. We need to take I think we need to take a page out of the book of the Deacons for Defense and Justice, the Black Armed Guard in North Carolina, and mobilize task forces to patrol our communities. I think that is legitimate. I think that's within the realm of the law, and I think that's within our capabilities to do. The Black Panthers also did the same thing. So just as Sean was talking about earlier about comms being the root of the word community, that's exactly what the Black Panthers did. They patrol their community in numbers, armed, legally, and also armed with the law, knowledge of the law, so that they can confront corrupt police officers who want to perpetrate injustices on the spot. And I think that's what we need to do on a consistent basis. There's some communities that are doing it. It's great to see communities across the country doing it. I think it's a model that we need to definitely have in more communities around the country. So, armed, community patrol, communications, legally doing this to protect our communities from violence.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to piggyback off of the idea of communications and then piggyback off of the comment about recording. I've seen recording playing a very organized role in what's been going on. It seems like a lot of the people who are out there recording are actively uploading what they are witnessing, which amplifies it because there is a lot of censoring happening right now. There's no coverage of what's going on in the street at a real level so that a lot of Americans can see. So a lot of Americans are actually turning to alternative media, I guess you can say, to understand what's going on in their own neighborhoods or in their own communities or states. And the recording organization of actively making sure, for example, if you see ICE agents or whoever the hell they are snatching people up off the street, they're uploading these people. Sometimes their masks slip off of their face.
Yep.
Sometimes there may be a badge. People are actually actively identifying these motherfuckers as like in real time. And I don't know if it's right to dox people, but FAFO.
Right.
So there's definitely some organization around that. And then, that ties into communication too. And it allows people who are not necessarily on the ground or in the street to organize in a way that is more national. Yeah. So I think that that's actually something that we can really lean into, because not everyone is going to be in the street.
Correct.
But if you have, a video that many people can see and identify and help spread some of that awareness and communication, that can also help us as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John, and I had a general question. So do you think with the events that have taken place this year, with the current political climate we have in this country, do you think that we can get like a political awakening for a lot of our elected leaders, as I still believe that they have this concept of like anything gun related is verboten, and is like they need to go to like strict gun control is going to save things, which we know that it will not, and if it did happen, it would happen to us first and foremost, rather than their desired effect. Do you think our political leaders will kind of understand the Second Amendment is meant for us as well as the rest of the country.
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope so. If they represent the communities in the way that they say they do, then they should be open to understanding our perspective. And that's one of the reasons why we do have these town hall meetings. We do record our general meetings and share it, and also, encourage people in our community, all people in our community, to join our organization so they understand our perspective and not a narrative that's being placed on us. Gun control for me has always been racist. It's always had its foundation and its root in racism. If it didn't, then the Mulford Act would not have occurred. So I spoke about the Black Panthers patrolling their communities with firearms, open carry legally. That was in California. That was it was met with resistance, and that's when there was gun control legislation, right, to prevent open carry. NRA backed, which is an organization that is a proponent of the Second Amendment, backed that Mulford Act, and then it restricted us from being able to legally patrol our communities the way we need to. So that the root of that Gun Control Act is in racism. So for me, all forms of gun control are racist, and I resist all forms of gun control because they don't solve the issue. If you're looking at gun violence in your community, it has less to do with the gun and more to do with the violence. What is the root cause of the violence? If you ask 5 whys, you can get to the root cause of anything, right? So why is the violence occurring? Economics, right? In affluent societies, if in an affluent community, people aren't robbing each other. Everybody's good, right? Everybody's good. Like, you got your 2.5 cars, your 3.5 babies, you got your pet. Everybody's good.
White fence.
But in communities where there's inequity and despair and lack of investment and defunding of the community, people turn on each other, right? So the root cause of the violence is not the gun. The gun is how the violence is perpetrated. So removing the gun doesn't remove the violence. And so you'd never solve the problem. If it were a solution, then it would have been solved already. All the gun buybacks, all the cheap guns that people brought in, all the guns that don't work that people brought in, still leave guns on the street that do work with criminals that have intentions of not giving up their gun, right? So it has to be a shift in mindset for many of our leaders in the public to understand what they're proposing with some of the legislation that is intended to help the community, but I think it has an adverse effect.
Thank you.
I just want to add, just quickly, and I think to the gentleman here right now today, right, and the ones who were here earlier, there are those who are trying to get what we're talking about. So I commend them for being here because they will take this and think, hey, does this have the attention that I wanted to have? I say all the time, like, you see the federal laws, I'm like, that's not going to solve the problem. I see, we got instructor friends who up in Chicago, that ain't solved the problem yet. So, but I do commend, so I do think some of our leaders are seeing it and saying, hey, what can I do differently that may help solve the problem? So I think it is, again, nothing's ever 100%. You have 5 that have been here today out of, I don't know how many you guys got, right? So changing those 5, if we're even changing those 5 influence, great, but there's still hundreds of others that we may or may not have impacted. So 1 or 2 is great. It starts to have that shift, and then they can say, hey, you should come to Bass Reeves. So these things, I think, help not only just us, but help them as well to understand maybe this isn't the right way. Let me pivot and go this way because I see now whatever can be the difference. So I do think there's opportunities. I do think there's sometimes going to be areas where we can help them help influence, but it's up to every human being to really say, hey, I want to impart that change. So again, I commend the like 5 or 6 who've been here today to kind of just sit in and listen to this. One of which is just joined today.
Yeah.
So we got us one. He coming on to this.
Yeah, and I'll add that the education has to happen at all levels, right? Not just
us.
Not just us, but it has to happen, with our representatives as well, right? Because they're the ones that are speaking for us and putting those laws in place and all of that. So even though we're sitting here having this town hall, we're kind of those mediators and trying to help them understand our perspective. They're going out there and helping the larger community understand the perspective that we're also trying to put out there. So it helps that they're here, sitting here, spending their time with us, on a Saturday as well. And Doreen's come out to several of our events, learning about, what she can learn as well, and taking that back to her group as well. So,
and I just want to clarify something. When I say I resist all forms of gun control, I do, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that I'm personally not open to solutions, right? I am solution oriented, so I would propose, instead of a legislation being very punitive, why don't we flip it around, right? Why don't we give the community incentives to come out and learn from organizations like this, right? Versus something that's punitive. Like if you do this, these are the years that you're going to get, or if you don't do this, you're not going to have access to firearms. There are many in our community who can't afford to take a class. Right? We're forcing them to take a class that's $400 or $300. It's happening in New York and New Jersey, right? And they might not be able to afford that in order to get access to purchase a firearm, which they actually might need. There are cases of domestic violence. There are cases of, just violence in the community. And they feel that they need protection. And to jump through a lot of hoops in order to do it, I think is very prohibitive and it's very punitive. But if you give someone an incentive to do it, right, why not fund these organizations like ours that are nonprofit to provide that education for them, right? Lower the barrier so that they can exercise their Second Amendment rights just like they can exercise their First Amendment right, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, right? Make it more conducive to folks following the law than not trying to break it. Right, that's my whole thing. So when I say I resist all forms of gun control, that's really what I mean. But I'm not opposed to solution.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a few people from the audience that would like to speak. Go ahead.
Okay. I was waiting to get on the mic. I'm Georgia Representative Shegun Adena, House District 110 out in Gwinnett, Loganville, Lawrenceville, Snellville, and Gracie. Nice. I'm excited to be here because for me it's an education. And I know I have other places to be, but I stayed because this conversation is something that we need to have in our community.
Appreciate it.
And we need to be strategic, yes. Right? So I'm hearing why in the past, the challenges we have as Black people. I'm hearing as an immigrant, I was naturalized in 2006, originally from Nigeria, my mom's from the Caribbean. Understanding the challenge that we're seeing in our communities today with militia. I'm not calling them ICE agents because they do truly act like militia. They are. Right? And what we need to do to organize. And I'm hearing gun laws protecting our Second Amendment right, but also how it's impacting us. And I was in a conversation yesterday with 3 young Black men, and I asked, what are the issues that you're concerned about? What do you want us to address? And the first issue they mentioned was gun control. Guns in our community. Because they go to school scared, wondering if they're gonna come home alive. So when we're having these discussions, and I'm gonna join, and I'm gonna be an active advocate, but education is the key.
Yes, sir.
But also, we also have to realize, we policymakers, we too have to protect the interests of everyone. So I'm open for an education and a dialogue. I'm also a member of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. I'm the secretary. So we're going to bring this conversation to the Capitol.
Thank you.
Because we can't go on like this anymore. Our communities depend on all of us, and not just those of us in the Capitol, but all of us together coming up with the right solution to move forward. So I leave my comment there, and I'm going to get some more indication, and I might have to sneak out soon, but I really
okay. We appreciate your time.
want to be here for this conversation.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We got just one thing
say anything?
from the panelists, and then we'll come back to the audience. Just one.
I'm going to read something that's very appropriate and aligns with what you just said. And this was just something that I read just yesterday in preparing for this. So Baltimore crime rate drops. Mayor Scott's violence reduction strategy shows real results. So the Baltimore Group Violence Reduction Strategy started in West Baltimore in 2022, bringing together social services, community leaders, law enforcement to address gun violence. The program offers stipends for participating in positive activities while also holding people accountable for violent actions. Run by MONSE, the initiative puts a strong focus on job training and connecting people to employment. So far, 162 individuals have been linked to important supportive services. Since its launch, it has led to 25% drop in homicides and shootings in the Western District, and carjackings have gone down 1/3. Thanks to this progress, the program expanded into Central and Eastern Districts and receives $50 million in ARPA funding. A full citywide rollout is planned for 2025. It's showing Baltimore's commitment to using innovative strategies to improve public safety. Nowhere in this did it say no guns allowed, right? Eliminate guns from society, right? It talks about social services. When I lived in Queens, New York, we had a high school called August Martin High School. We're located about 15 minutes from Kennedy Airport. Students at August Martin learned aeronautics and how to build balsa wood airplanes that could fly. They also had flight lessons at Kennedy Airport where they can get hours towards a pilot license when they graduate from high school. August Martin was the first black commercial pilot. Do you know they defunded that school? They defunded that school, and in South Jamaica, it turned into you can walk, every block had drug dealers on it. We went from a high school that graduated Russell Simmons, that graduated Najee, the musician, to a school that straight up violence because teachers didn't want to teach there anymore. This is systemic racism. This is systemic racism. So when you defund the community, you take out social services, you introduce drugs and guns, then you have this toxic mix. But the solution is not just to take out the guns, because when you take out the guns, then it leaves those of us who want to protect and defend our communities helpless. And that's what happened with Tulsa. That's what happened with Greenwood. That's what happened, and could have possibly happened in Brownsville here, which we stymied. And in 1906, when we had the race riots, it was stymied because we had the ability to protect ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add the wrinkle of domestic and intimate partner violence to the conversation. There's, the community violence piece of it, but also the fact that black women are disproportionately victims of gun violence in domestic and intimate partner relationships, and ways that we can address that issue that are not dependent on the government or government programs. And just the fact that there are many, many, many black boys and men being red-pilled, and that contributes to an attitude of violence towards women generally that is different than what we see, in terms of community violence that really is economically related as well. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation. I'm not sure where you were going next, Io, but just to make sure that we are addressing that in terms of our collective safety. It's not just protecting ourselves from outside, but making sure within this community that we are also safe.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that point up. That's very important. I mean, every day I'm seeing such negativity about Black women, and I know that they're trolls and bots, but some of them are not, right? And they're being spoon-fed by the manosphere, the red pill, to hate Black women. And so when you continue to fuel that, we already have a domestic violence problem that makes Black women more vulnerable. And that's going back to my point earlier, why I felt it was very important for me to be able to defend myself. And I believe that every Black woman in this country should be able to defend herself in one way or another. Yes.
I think I have a solution for you. A brilliant legislator came up with some legislation. What was his name? Billy Mitchell, yes. Billy Mitchell. What the legislation would do would require the training, of course, require them to do background checks and the like, just like that you talked about here. And it would allow organizations to offer them free. As a matter of fact, 3 or 4 years ago, I did a program at the local YMCA, New York YMCA, and I said, maybe I'll have about 50 people show up. We had 300 or 400 people showed up. We gave away gun safes and mechanisms to lock their guns. The police were there telling them how to act if you are stopped and you have a gun in it. And the legislation would certify organizations like this, organizations like the YMCA, so that they could, in fact, even offer it free for those folks who would like that training.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
We're going to have one final question for today. So for my panelists, to what extent does the media's portrayal of gun violence and gun ownership, particularly the depiction of African Americans as perpetrators, shape African American perceptions and broader public opinion about gun ownership in the Black community?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Sure. Okay. To what extent does the media's portrayal of gun violence and gun ownership, particularly the depiction of African Americans as perpetrators, shape African American perceptions and the broader public opinion about gun ownership in the Black community?
That part.
Historically, the Black community. Let me step back. So historically, we have had a pro-gun philosophy in the Black community. We've always had it, and someone said we've never been really educated on it, but it's always been there. Most recently, with a lot of the gun control legislation, many in our community feel that we should be disarmed because of all of the violence that's perpetrated by firearms, because of the hip-hop videos that glorify guns, because of the media that shows us as thugs, right? And all the crime that's going on in the inner city, but never show the crime that's going on in the rest of the country in other areas that are non-Black, right? They don't show that. They don't show the violence that's perpetrated in the white community. We talk about Black on Black crime, but you don't talk about white on white crime. 85% of those who were killed in white communities were killed by white people. But you don't hear white on white crime. So that, to me, influences the way certain members of our community think, and it's almost self-denial. We deny ourselves the ability to exercise our Second Amendment right, protect ourselves and our community, protect our family, because of the media and what we're absorbing, right? Because there's nothing counter to it. So you'll say, oh, take all the guns out in the community, do the gun buybacks, and that's going to solve the problem, and it really does not. Right, so yeah, I think the media does have a huge impact on the way that certain members of our community feel about our right to own firearms.
So I'll add to this one, and part of it is also generational because this generation is so used to seeing these short little video clips, right? Their attention spans are so short, right, that if you don't grab them in those short amounts of time, right, even when you are giving them valuable information, even when you are trying to give them history and facts about who we are and what people are really trying to do to them, if you don't grab that attention span, you lose them, right? Or if it's not flashy, if it's not the gun that they're looking for, they're gone. And this is a conversation we're always having because, like myself and Kia, right, we do social media, right? So we're always trying to find this balance of we want to educate our people, right? We want to make sure that we have social media that portrays our people in the community positive, right? Imagery of us in the community with our youth, doing our training events, doing these town halls, the Black traditional arms, so on and so forth, right? But unfortunately, that is not what captures people's attention, even though that is what's important. That is that's what adds value. What gets likes, unfortunately, are the videos of Black people with guns shooting hundreds of rounds of ammo that don't hit anything, of them cussing and unfortunately looking like thugs and that the media has told people this is what Black gun owners look like, right? And we are trying to change that imagery, right? Even if that doesn't get us the likes, right? Or whatever, we want to make sure people are actually educated on the correct way of doing things. So maybe we don't get 1 million likes, but we want the things that we put out there to be the correct things that they're looking at the first time. So then when they look at that video and they go, why are their videos different than those videos? And so they're not mindlessly scrolling and not looking at anything that doesn't add value. I'll also say that the media, their job sometimes can be to put out things that grab that attention from the masses, right, and sensationalize, right? That's a good word, good word for it. We have had plenty of media that has come in here, and they do want to try and get our perspective, right? So we do have organizations that have come in and have, put out articles about us that try to learn about our perspective and learn about what we're doing in the organization. And they're sometimes surprised about how much we do try to educate and how we are so different. I mean, even the three of us sitting on this couch, right? Our backgrounds and our experiences and how we teach and the different, things that we do, right? And the passions that we have are different just among the three of us. Yeah.
But we all like guns.
Right, that's the thing we share. We all like guns. Right. We all like guns. We have a passion for teaching. We have a passion for educating, self-development, and our people. So that's the thing that we have in common. That's why we're wanting to do this town hall to educate, to get people's perspective. And I really love getting everyone's minds going and getting their feedback and information. This is what we want. This is what we want to see. So.
Yes, it is.
And I guess I'll finish off with just, in terms of the media piece, like Cassandra said, I'm going to take it a little bit different direction because I really don't have a whole lot to add to what they're saying other than the media outlets that have come to us the most have all been foreign. So like I mentioned earlier, they're getting the story, but we haven't seen local news come to do anything with us. So then when we talk about media portraying things in certain lights, they're not trying to show anything different to me. They're choosing, like we just said, to show only the negative. Unfortunately, that's the society we live in. We look at, if I'm hurting your feelings, why does Atlanta Housewives even exist? It's just a super toxic, so, but that's where people are, right? To Cassandra's point of, the media videos that we see is like, that's what people are. And so I think it's kind of flip it on us. If that's not what we see, then one, I'm not going to like it. I'm not going to share it. And I'm going to personally share the good. If it gets 2 or 3 likes, cool, I can get 2 or 3 people. Like we just mentioned earlier, the politicians are here. We got 5 here, cool. That's 5 that chose to be here and got the information, got the knowledge. And so I think we can start to try to change that narrative in sharing and putting out those images that show us in a positive light. Hopefully one day AJC will say, yes, let me go ahead because I've had a lady, last time we went to Capitol, I want to do a story with you. I ain't heard from her yet. That's been how many months now? So local just hasn't done what I feel need to do. And if you guys know anything about me, I'm not going to beg you to do anything. So if I'm begging you to do it, you don't want to do it. So I don't want you here for that. So I do think media, even getting down to the media of movies, has shown the negatives so much that that's what we're used to versus what we do. So just kind of my 2 cents to that.
Yeah, why the black person always got to die? Why black person always got to die in the movie?
Some of them don't.
Right, thank you. And we have some comments from the audience.
So it's this conversation stirs a lot. And what I think about is dropping seeds on fertile ground versus that fire hose force that we're feeding, or we try to feed people with. When you think about the media, and you think about CNN, MSNBC, Fox, TBS, whatever, CBS, they are giving you information that's somewhat obscured. I think it's a good word. Our African American people, we look and we focus on different media outlets and vehicles, and I don't think we're taking advantage of what's available to us, which is community organizations that are able to take information from you to actually give to the people, and you're dropping it on fertile ground versus your that fire hose perspective. I just don't think it works. I think, like you said, if we could get a handful of people to receive information that's going to benefit them, that's what we need to focus on. So me, as the president of the United Ebony Society, if I was to open up my website to where you are able to actually put information out there, somewhat of a podcast or however you want to do it, to educate the people that's actually visiting that form of media, you're going to be more effective. I think that's where we have to look at research, find out where those lanes are, and let's feed those lanes, and not just depend on, media TV to educate our people, because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You think about what's happening in Burkina Faso. How many in here are familiar with what's happening with that? Yep. Okay? Not even half this room. But if you look at what's going on a national level or global level, and bring that down to a community level, you get a better understanding of where all of this, what we're talking about, is going, and what we need to do and how we need to be creative to really educate our people. Communication was a big thing, comms. You got to have it. So let's focus on educating our people. Our people don't vote because they're not educated. They're not educated on the political process. Correct. Especially our black men. And it's truly sad. So I'm just going to say that. Our black men, the majority, are not educated on the political process. That's why they don't vote. Communication. Our people are not receptive to guns, not receptive to The Second Amendment, they're not receptive to any of that because they're not educated on the process. They're not educated on the law. Education, by way of communication, dropping fertile seeds on fertile grounds versus that fire hose.
I agree.
Thank you. Okay, and this will be our last comment from the audience.
Thank you.
In reference to the media's perception, my background's in public relations. I went to Howard University for communications.
You know?
You know. Yes. There's been a campaign that's going on social media now where they're saying the farmers who lost all of their workers are upset because they thought we were going to come back to the fields. The answer to those statements have been a series of black people laughing and giving their commentary. I also saw a young man who went to a meeting or a convention for Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. There you go. And he sat there and asked every man he could, what job do you have? What job do you have? And they said they were leaders, managers, engineers, scientists, doctors. So his point was, why do you think that the blacks were going to come back to the fields? Media perception. They have been told in Iowa, because there's hardly any black people there, with their media perception, we are pimps, we are thugs, we are drug dealers, we are strippers, we are hoes, we are whatever they see on television. They see the female rappers twerking and talking about Pound Town, but they don't see me. I propose that we start our own social media campaign, and I'm challenging everyone to make their own video. This is what I do. This is a black job. I run a law firm. That's a black job. What's your black job?
I work in IT, Agile Transformation Coach.
That's a black job. Gun violence. No one in this room is a member of YSL. No one in this room, hopefully, are currently committing crimes.
Don't raise your hand.
Young man, you asked about this new proposal about training and education. We're going to keep training and educating our people. However, the issue is that the gun violence is not us. The people who want training and education are not out committing the crimes. Just as you see now with ICE. They can't find all the criminals, the rapists, and the murderers. So what are they doing? They're going to people's jobs, houses. They're going to the schools, the courtroom to arrest people who are paying, doing the paperwork to be legal. This isn't right, but this all comes to media perception. We need to, now that we don't have just the news stations, we need to utilize social media to break that stereotype, because I'm not going to anybody's field. Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. We're so glad that you were able to join us. We hope that this has been a very lively, engaging, and educational discussion. We will definitely do it again. I want to thank everyone who had a role in making today possible. I want to thank Marcus Wheeler for helping with media, and also want to mention too that Colin is one of the members of our Historical Perspective Committee, who was also the lead before I was. And Antonio, who also is helping with media today, is also on the Historical Perspective